Hello and welcome to Lymphoma blog number 5, which I will remember to post today. And today I wanted to tell you about a friend of mine. This is relevant both in terms of age and it's also relevant in terms of the difficulty in actually diagnosing a cancer like this. As you know, I told you I had pains in my hip. I assumed it was arthritis. Everybody else assumed it was arthritis. A lot of these things tend to then be about how long is it going on for? Is this something that really shouldn't be like it is? Am I making assumptions and keep going back to the doctor? I think that's the thing. But this little story will help you see how difficult it is to kind of, really tell that something untoward is going on, at least in the first instance. So this is my friend Andy, who's a musician. He's 41 years old. So as I said, when they said to me in my early 50s that I was young to have this type of cancer, then you can see, yes, but it's not exclusive to the over 60s or indeed the over 50s. So here's what Andy says, that the end of September, very sadly, he lost his mum. And a week later, so this is a year ago we're talking about, so a week later they were recording a new trio album. And during the recording, over a few days, he started to get really quite bad back and shoulder pain. And, he played a lot more than he had done for a while. So, you could put that down to things like that. He'd been teaching on Zoom, all kinds of reasons why you might end up with back and shoulder ache when you're doing stuff that you haven't done for a while. Also, 10 years earlier, he'd had a car crash that had affected his back a little bit. So, these things can come back to bite you. So he spoke to the doctor anyway, who advised just to keep using painkillers, and they worked. The pain went away. And in fact, for me, I was given painkillers and then I was given very, very strong painkillers, and they really, really helped. So you tend to assume, well, if that's doing the trick, then obviously the diagnosis is correct. So this pattern for Andy continued, and the pains kept coming back in different places for a week or two at a time, and they were steadily getting worse. Some people were even offering up alternative theories of not allowing the grief of losing his mum out. So this was kind of manifesting itself in pains around his body. We know those kind of effects can happen from grief and stuff, but nevertheless, this was going on and on and on. And then before Christmas, this one just gone, Andy had a bunch of blood tests and got one of those phone calls of, oh, you better come in to have a discussion. And I had one of those phone calls after they x-rayed my leg saying you better come in and have a discussion. Anyway, he went in, and the inflammation marker for Andy should normally be 5, but his was 99. So they then assumed rheumatoid arthritis. So he was booked into the rheumatology clinic in January. But by the new year, the pain was getting really, really bad, and really by this time stopping him doing day-to-day stuff. So the rheumatology lady couldn't actually tell that there was anything recognisably wrong with him. A few weeks later, Andy saw the rheumatology prof. He seemed to take things a bit more seriously and sent Andy off for scans, and also up painkillers. Then the middle of February, Andy was given a fine needle biopsy in lymph nodes, because the lymph nodes were looking weird on the scans. And of course, when I started to have my scans, that's exactly what happened for me. And the start of March, the rheumatology person phoned. Actually, it was that person who gave Andy the heads up about what was going on before he saw the haematologist the next day. And there it was. So that's when he was told that you've got lymphoma. So on the one hand, Andy was relieved that they'd actually found something wrong with him. It was taking him 20 minutes to get off the bed in the morning, and you know, as Andy said, he kind of, things had dawned on him that things weren't quite right. But where do you go with something like that? It isn't obvious. And actually, if you read most of the information about cancers, most cancers, certainly in the first instance, are not painful. So it isn't where your mind goes initially. And these kind of pains happen because of tumours pressing against nerve endings, all kinds of stuff like that. So that's Andy's story, and Andy has been through chemotherapy now, and it's all looking good. But when the rheumatology person gave me a ring, Andy said to me that the rheumatology guy said, well, what these tests are showing up is it could be something and it could be nothing, or it could be something quite serious. So Andy said, well, what are the odds would you give on each? And this guy wouldn't be drawn on that. And that's when Andy kind of felt, oh, okay, this might be a lot worse than I was thinking. And then he was asked whether he was sweating at night, and yes, he was. So the night sweats were an indicator as well. I couldn't reassure you by telling you that if you only have one of those symptoms, there wouldn't be anything untoward, because sometimes there can be an indicator of stuff. But basically, generally speaking, by the time certainly something is getting that painful, in my case, in Andy's case, there should be other symptoms as well: night sweats, itching, things like that. Obviously, as I say, for me, a woman of a certain age, night sweats, ha ha ha, and itchy skin. I have psoriasis, so you know, said that all before. We can all look, especially those of us who don't like going to the doctor or don't want to bother the doctor, we can all look for other reasons why these things might exist, but we need to keep our eye on stuff that isn't going away or is recurring. So, you know, I'm not telling you Andy's story to frighten you, but just to say, look, this is very real. These things come along, and they show up in the most peculiar ways sometimes, and blood cancers particularly, they're not easy. You know, my doctor rang me up after I'd been through most of this and said, what did we miss? And that's them asking me, because they know they missed something, and hopefully my case will help them kind of move things on a little more quickly if they're faced with something like that from somebody else. So that's today's vlog, and there'll be another one tomorrow from my holiday destination. See you then. Bye.